r/NoSleep. Posted by you/lifeisstrangemetoo. Please track me down and kill me. My demon haunts my every step. When I was just a little girl, he would whisper evil things in my ear. Set the house on fire. Take the kitchen knife and stab your mother in the back. Put rat poison in the dog food. Most of the time I managed to resist. But sometimes I couldn't stand it, and I did what he wanted me to do. You have to understand that I had to stop the whispering, the constant malevolent presence that dragged me down like a lead weight in my soul. So I stabbed my classmate with a pencil. I slashed my teacher's tires. I set the chemistry lab on fire. My parents took me to special doctors. They whipped me with a belt, screamed at me and slapped me in the face. The demon would sit in the corner as they beat me, smiling with contentment at the pain that he had caused me. As I got older, the problem got worse. The demon became more real. Instead of an evil whisper in my ear, he was clawed hands digging into my flesh. He was hot, sulfur-scented breath breathing down my neck. The leaden weight in my soul got so heavy that every step I took felt like 1,000 pounds. Then one night, the thing that I feared most happened. Look at that girl alone. Nobody else is around. Just take her and throw her in the car. I'll tell you what to do next. I wanted to keep on driving, but as soon as I passed the girl, my body was gripped in a burning iron cage of pain. I didn't have a choice, I had to turn around. Once I got out of the car, my demon took control. He raked his claws down my back until I bled through my shirt. He shoved me to the asphalt and grabbed the girl, clamping his hand over her mouth as she began to scream. He held her nose shut as she squirmed until her body went completely limp. He tossed her in the car and drove us to my house. When we got to my house, the demon entered my body completely. I could feel his writhing, burning sinew violate my insides as he made me go to work. He made me tie the girl to the water heater, he made me duct tape her mouth. He made me pull her pants down and shove a kitchen knife inside her, over and over again as she twisted her hips away from me, pulling at her handcuffs until her wrists sprayed blood. Finally she died, and the demon made me chop her up. He made me cut off her ass cheeks and dice them into cubes, then fry them up in butter. He said the ass cheeks were the best part because when the fat renders it gives the meat a savory, nutty taste. He forced me to eat it, and I had to admit that he was right. My life is a living hell that only gets worse as my demon drags me on. Every cell of my body screams in burning agony as he violates me day by day. The weight in my soul is so heavy that I fear it may drag me down to the lake of fire any day. I've tried so hard to kill myself. I've tried to jump in front of traffic, but my demon holds me back. I slashed my wrists in the bathtub by the demon dialed 911. I just wish that somebody would kill me. I wanted to send this message so that somebody could find me and end my misery, but every time I try to type my name, my demon breaks a finger. So instead of a plea for help, I'll just make this an apology. I'm so sorry for all the awful things my demon has made me do. I know that soon I will be dead, and I welcome it with open arms. Goodbye. The next story of this video. Posted by you/lifeisstrangemetoo. My girlfriend the brain-eating alien. David, I'm an alien. I rubbed the back of my neck as I stared across the table at my girlfriend, who had brought me to my favorite restaurant to confess something important to me. I don't get what you mean, I said. Like, you're Canadian or something? No, I mean I'm an actual extraterrestrial being, she said. I'm not even from this galaxy. The clink of dishes and the ambient chatter of the happy couples around us seemed like distant echoes as the wheels in my head ground slowly to a halt. 30 minutes ago I had been the most nervous I'd ever been in my entire life, a small blue velvet box clenched tightly in my fist as I prepared to pop the most important question I'd ever asked. And yet instead of a giddy yes and a tear-stained hug, I was answered with a no, and 5 minutes of awkward silence. I felt like all those romantic comedies lied to me. Now, I was sitting across from the love of my life and she was telling me that we couldn't get married because she wasn't even human. Now I'm no stranger to excuses. I've been turned down by girls because they had to wash their hair or walk their dogs. I even got stood up once by a girl who said that her grandma had died. I was sympathetic until I got an Instagram notice that she'd checked in at the local nightclub. Still, this was a new one. You look upset, said Sarah. What are you thinking about? Ahem. I don't really know what to think, I said. Your body certainly seems pretty human to me. Yeah, about that, Sarah said. I need to show you something. Don't freak out, okay? Okay. Sarah lifted up her left arm and began to use her fingertip to trace an intricate pattern across the back of her hand. There was a click, and a blue light began to glow underneath her skin. Suddenly, the light forked out like electricity, and then Sarah was gone. Sitting in her place was a blue little creature that looked a bit like a Smurf with two rabbit ear-shaped antennae sticking out of the top of its head. There was the sound of breaking glass, and I realized that I dropped my wine glass and it had shattered on the floor. The waitress rushed over to clean it up, seemingly oblivious to the fact that there was now a 3-foot-tall alien sitting across from me instead of a human woman. I stared around the restaurant waiting for somebody else to take notice, but nobody did. "Am I having a stroke?" I asked. "I thought you were supposed to smell burning toast when that happened." Sarah shook her head. "It's my perceptual modulator," she said. "It's tuned to your brain frequency. Only you can see my true form right now." "Oh right, of course," I said faintly. "A perceptual modulator." I reached for my glass of wine only to remember that it had shattered moments before. "You're not freaking out, are you?" asked Sarah. I thought about her question for a moment. I probably should have been freaking out, but it seemed more like my brain had totally ceased all function. "No," I said, reaching again for the non-existent glass of wine. "Good," she replied. "Because I have a confession to make." "You mean to say that your confession isn't that you're an alien?" I asked. "I'm afraid it's worse than that," said Sarah. She nudged her glass of red wine across the table to me and I downed it in a gulp. "All right," I said. "I'm ready." Sarah bit her lip and swayed nervously in her chair. "Well," she began, "I kind of eat people." "You eat people?" I asked, reaching for the bottle this time. "Yes," she said. "But not whole people. Just the brains." I tipped the bottle to pour myself another glass, thought better of it and downed the whole bottle instead. I coughed as the last of the bitter taste hit my throat and then wiped the wine stain from my lips. "So to recap," I said. "You're an alien who can only survive by eating human brains." "What?" said Sarah. "No, I can survive off human food. Brains are more like a delicacy." "Oh." There was a moment of awkward silence in which Sarah bit her lip and stared at the floor. "But, it's not like I'm a bad person," she said. "I only eat bad people. Do you remember your neighbor Mr. Wallace that tried to poison your dog?" "Yeah," I said. "Didn't he retire to Hawaii?" Sarah shook her head. "No," she said. "I ate his brains." "Wow," I said, scratching at the back of my head. "This is really a lot to take in." "You're still not freaking out, right?" said Sarah. Judging by my heart rate and the intense ringing in my ears, I was, in fact, freaking out. But Sarah looked so nervous for me, I couldn't help but shake my head no. Sarah breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Well that's good, because I have a confession to make." "You really have a lot of these, don't you?" I said. "This is the last one," Sarah said. "I promise." "All right," I said, "I'm ready." "Actually," Sarah said, "maybe you should have another bottle of wine for this one." She reached down into her purse and pulled out my favorite wine, uncorked it and slid it across the table to me. I upended the bottle into my mouth and 10 seconds later it was gone. "All right," I said, beginning to slur. "Hit me." "Well," said Sarah, failing for the first time to meet my eyes. "You know how I insisted we come here on our first date?" "Yeah," I said, a sudden dread beginning to bubble in my stomach. "Well," said Sarah. "It's because I know the owner, he's actually from my home planet." "Oh no," I said. "Don't tell me." "I'm afraid so," said Sarah. "Most of the dishes contain human brains." I looked down at my volcano roll, remembering how enthusiastically I had proclaimed it as the best one I had ever had. "The volcano roll?" I said. "I'm afraid so," replied Sarah. I suddenly began to feel very sick. I wasn't sure how much of it was the wine, and how much of it was the fact that I had just consumed human brains. I guess it didn't matter. Yet when I looked at Sarah I forgot about that. Her fingers twisted in her lap as she stared down at the floor, the way she always did when she was nervous. She looked up at me with doe-eyed innocence. "Are you mad at me?" she asked. Maybe it was the fact that even in her alien form she still looked so much like the woman I loved. Maybe it was the fact that Mr. Wallace was a racist, mean old bastard. Maybe it was the fact that I just downed 2 entire bottles of wine, but I silently shook my head no. "So do you still want to get married?" she asked, her voice tremulous with tentative hope. I silently nodded, and Sarah's face lit up with a grin the size of Texas. She ran her finger back over her hand and resumed her human form, still smiling bigger than I'd ever seen her smile before. "I'll stay in this form from now on," she said. "It's the one you fell in love with, after all." "Yeah," I croaked out. "That's probably for the best." Then, as the wine began to seep into my blood, a thought occurred to me. "So, that perceptual modulator thing," I said. "Yes?" said Sarah, cocking her head to the side. "Can it alter your appearance in other ways? Like, hypothetically, could you make certain parts, bigger?" Sarah threw back her head and laughed. "Oh, it can do all kinds of things," she said. "Come on and let's go home. I want to show you something." I fumbled for my wallet in my pocket and dropped all the cash on the table before getting up and rushing out the door with Sarah. I won't share what happened next. I'll only say that even though my fiancée may be a brain-eating alien, she's still the woman I fell in love with and the best thing that's ever happened to me. And that perceptual modulator can do anything.